Welcome to Roundup Reddit. Tonight's tale is about a couple haunted by a sinister presence. Get ready for He is Watching Us. I woke in the middle of the night to find my boyfriend sitting on the end of our bed, staring into the dark corner of our bedroom. I called out to him groggily, "Jack?" He didn't respond. "Jack?" I called again. He was still and completely silent. I moved to the end of the bed and looked at him. The look on his face froze my blood. It's as though he wasn't there. His eyes were wide open. His pupils were like dinner plates as he stared endlessly at the dark corner of our room. Needless to say, nothing like this had happened before. Jack wasn't a sleepwalker. He usually slept through the night just fine. No tossing, turning, or even grinding his teeth. He was gripping his knees with both hands. I reached out and gently put my hand on his. I swept his brown hair out of his eyes and softly said, "Jack, let's go back to bed." I wasn't trying to wake him. They say you're not supposed to wake a sleepwalker. I was trying to guide him back under the covers, but suddenly he snapped out of it, and life came back into his eyes, and he looked at me. "Haley?" He was clearly confused. "I woke up and found you sitting here on the end of the bed. You looked completely out of it," I said. "Damn, really? That's creepy." He blinked a lot and looked around the room. "Let's go back to bed," I said. And we did. We got up a couple hours later, around 5 a.m. Jack was working crazy hours. He would go in at 6 and work 12 to 16 hours before dragging himself back home. We assumed that was the reason for his strange behavior. So we made a plan to get to bed earlier. He got home around 9 p.m. and went immediately to bed. I joined him a couple hours later. I slid under the covers, he turned over and put his arm around me, and I was out. I woke up with a start this time. Again, Jack was sitting on the end of the bed, staring into the corner. "Jack!" I hissed at him. I'll admit that this time I was not in the mood. It's selfish, I know, but I just wanted to sleep. I managed to pull myself out of bed. I sat down next to him. Again, his eyes were fixed on the dark far corner of our bedroom. I grabbed his knee and gently shook it. "Jack, we have to go back to." Then Jack said something. It sounded like, "Swan." I leaned in close to him, fully awake now and chills going up my arm. "What did you say, Jack?" "Swan." I was ready to give up and pull him back to bed, rather than sit up and try to translate gibberish, but then he raised his hand. He extended his index finger and pointed into the dark corner, and he whispered, "He's watching us." A shock of fear ran through my body like lightning. I slowly turned from Jack to the corner where he pointed. I stared into the darkness, but saw nothing. What did I expect to see then? A ghost? Then I jumped up and moved to the side of the bed and snapped on the lamp on the side table. I looked over at the corner of the room one more time to be sure. There was nothing there. Did it happen again? Jack was looking at me, blinking his eyes rapidly with a kind of anguish on his face. I remember it this time. I sat next to him on the bed. I could see the bedroom, but I couldn't move. "Sleep paralysis," I said. He nodded. It was as if something was forcing me to stare into the corner. I was just staring into the darkness until I began to see something emerge from the wall. He looked terrified. "It was a nightmare," I said. I rubbed his back and kissed him. "It felt like I was conjuring something," he added. "A nightmare," I repeated. "Let's go back to bed." Beep, beep, beep. It was Jack's alarm on his phone. It was 5 a.m. and time for him to get ready to go to work, even on a Saturday. "Fuck," Jack groaned. "I'll start the coffee," I said as I made my way down the hall. I decided not to tell Jack what he was saying in the night. "He's watching us." It was probably nothing anyway, just a nightmare. I handed Jack his travel mug of black coffee, gave him a kiss, and watched him step out the door into the still, dark morning. I had the day off from work. After some coffee and reading, it was time to get the house in order. I started in the bedroom. I was making the bed when I got a feeling I couldn't shake. It felt like I was being watched. I looked over at the corner of the room and almost screamed. On the corner walls of the room was what looked like the silhouette of a man. It was an outline of a full body. There was clearly a head, shoulders, and torso cast onto the corner of the room. I watched the figure for a second, and something seemed off about it, apart from the obvious strangeness of its presence in general. The figure did not seem like a shadow, but more like an image imprinted on the wall. I slowly walked over to the corner and placed my hand on the wall, I don't know why. When I pulled my hand away, it was covered in a dark dust. I looked closely at the dark image, then I wiped my rag across it. The dust came away onto the rag and powdered into the air. It looked like ash. I wet the rag and wiped the rest of the shadow figure off the wall. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you just leave the fucking house? The short answer is, we did. I spent that whole day alone in the house. I spent that whole day thinking about those words that Jack had said in the night. He's watching us. Then I spent the whole day thinking about that ashen shadow figure on the wall. Then I booked us a hotel room. Jack arrived home at about 9 p.m., and I already had everything packed. "What's going on?" Jack asked. "I got us a room at the Skyview for the night." He dropped his backpack on the floor. Did something happen? I just thought a change of scenery might help you sleep through the night. I don't know, I'm pretty tired already. I was already rolling the suitcase out the front door. The room is already booked and paid for. I'll drive, I called back to him. I didn't tell him that in the suitcase was a new set of lingerie and heels I'd ordered a few days ago. I woke up hours later in a king-sized hotel bed, now wearing nothing but sheer nylon thigh highs. The TV was still on and flickering in the corner of the room. Through my bleary vision, I could see the digital clock on the side table, which read 3 inside M. I shot up and reached over to the other side of the bed. I felt Jack's chest. Thank God. I settled into him and closed my eyes. Then I felt Jack's head turn toward me. He made a sound. What? I whispered. What I heard next made my blood run cold. He's watching us. I shot up and looked around the room, and then I saw it. The TV in the corner was now showing nothing but static. Somehow, something about it looked off, as if the little static particles were behaving in coordinated patterns of movement. Then I saw it. Within the static, I could see the dark figure of a head and shoulders. It looked just like the shadow figure that appeared in our bedroom. I could barely make out any features, but from the outline of the figure, I could tell it was smiling. He was watching us, and he was smiling. Jack, wake up. Jack didn't move. I kept my eyes locked on the shadowy thing on the TV screen. Jack woke up, I shouted this time and shook his arm. Jack! He didn't even stir. I remembered the TV remote was on the side table. I slowly reached over, keeping my eyes on the man in the static all the while. I felt the remote with the tip of my fingers. I gripped it and quickly mashed the power button. The screen went dark, and so did my vision. My eyes flicked around the pitch-black darkness. My vision adjusted, and all I saw was the shadowy hotel room. I turned to wake Jack, and my heart nearly stopped. Jack wasn't there. He wasn't in the bed. Then I saw him. Jack was standing in front of the TV in the corner of the room. Even in the near-complete darkness, I could see his unblinking, bloodshot eyes, staring right at me. A dead smile was plastered on his face. Jack? Jack wakes up. I squeaked. He slowly moved across the room. It looked as though his body wasn't working correctly. He moved like a marionette, twitching and lurching across the room towards me. I looked around for some form of weapon. I chose the telephone on the side table. I pulled the cord from the receiver and held it up like a club. Don't come any closer, Jack. His rigorous smile continued its slow movement towards me in the darkness. Suddenly, he was only 2 steps away. I stepped forward and swung the phone, connecting hard with the side of his head. I know that the thing I just hit with the phone was not Jack, not really, but I could feel that my Jack was still in there somewhere. Jack was the love of my life. When I hit him, I couldn't help feeling regret. After I hit him, I hesitated. Not for long, but long enough for him to turn back towards me and reach a hand for my throat. I backed away at the last second and bolted for the door. It was too late. He caught me by the arm. The last thing I remember was my scream being choked out by a hand gripping my throat and squeezing hard. I woke up in our bedroom. I was on my knees, bound with duct tape around my ankles, wrists, and mouth. In front of me was Jack. He was kneeling facing the dark corner of our bedroom. His head was flung back, and he was rapidly whispering something. It looked as though he was in prayer or some kind of religious fervor. Then I saw it. The dark shadows in the corner of the bedroom seemed to darken even more. A shape emerged, a head, then shoulders and arms. At first, the shape appeared as a silhouette. Then it seemed to emerge from the wall and take solid form. A face was coming through our bedroom wall, and it was darker than dark, and smiling a horrible smile. The same smile I saw plastered across Jack's face. Jack's whispering became more urgent. He spread his arms out to either side. The dark thing opened its eyes. They were pitch black. Its arms emerged from the wall. They were long, and its hands extended out into narrow, endless fingers. It reached out and put its hands around Jack's throat. I tried again to scream. The thing's hands moved up and gripped Jack's head, then with one quick motion snapped his head around completely. I'll never forget the look on Jack's face. He was smiling. I screamed and cried. The dark thing pulled Jack into the corner of the room and somehow pulled him through the wall. Jack's body was gone, and I was left alone in the bedroom, screaming through the duct tape on my mouth. I toppled onto my side and screamed until my voice box shattered, and then I kept screaming. I slammed my knees into the ground, making as much noise as possible. I don't know how long it was before the police showed up. They asked me what happened. I couldn't speak after screaming for hours, so I had to write it all down on one of their notepads. I told them what I am now telling you. They didn't say as much, but they clearly didn't believe me. Jack's fingerprints were on the duct tape that I was bound with, and, technically, he is the one that attacked and restrained me. My claim that he was under some kind of supernatural possession to them just read as a defense mechanism against the domestic abuse that they believed I had suffered. Every so often, an officer checks in with me to see if I know where Jack is or if I've heard from him. They believe he's on the lam somewhere. I'm living with my family now. I sleep with all the lights on, if I'm lucky enough to sleep at all. Lately, there's been power outages in the neighborhood. They didn't start until I started living with them. I don't know why that thing took Jack and didn't take me. I can only assume that one of these nights, it will come back. If you enjoyed this eerie tale, give it a thumbs up and share it. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until next time.